this moment, the eyes of global capital widened. This was a strange and magical scene that they had never imagined. Deutsche Bank exploded. On March 24th, the stock price once plummeted by more than 12%, and this is very strange. As of the end of 2022, Deutsche Bank's liquidity coverage ratio is 142%, which is equivalent to $1.42 in reserves for every dollar withdrawn. Unlike Credit Suisse's huge losses, Deutsche Bank made a profit of €5.6 billion in 2022, up 65% over 2021 last year, a record high. How could such a healthy bank suddenly have trouble? All members of the European capital circle were silent. At the same time, the Prime Minister of Spain, the President of France, the Prime Minister of Maximilian, the President of the European Commission, and other European leaders suddenly got together and released a signal to visit China. There are some inexplicable connections between these two events. Perhaps we can say that the European bank explosion is a trap. A trap in which the United States wants to turn over the whole of Europe. This video lets us look at the many murderous intentions hidden behind this. It all starts with America's predicament. As you all know, the world experienced a bout of inflation last year. Prices in the United States are also soaring. If prices are to be held down, the US will have to raise rates. Because when the interest rate is high, a lot of money will be put into the bank, so there is less money circulating in the market, and money becomes more valuable. Prices are relatively low. But at the same time, the United States had to face a problem. Before the release of water, the United States printed a lot of money, and most of them flew into the stock market and real estate market, sending US stocks higher. And if the US does start to raise interest rates, there will be people selling stocks to cash in the bank to earn interest. The higher the interest rate increases, the higher the interest rate on bank deposits, and the more people will sell stocks and the risk of a crash in the US stock market. Similarly, the higher the deposit rate, the less good the treasury rate looks. Treasury bonds would also be sell-off. The United States would also face a huge liquidity crisis. This poses a dilemma for America, a financial powerhouse. How can you raise interest rates to curb inflation while preserving your financial markets? America's best bet is to encourage conflict between Russia and Ukraine. There is nothing attractive about the US financial markets, but if things get bad in Europe and there is a war there, European money will have to go to the US for safety. And when you're here, you can't invest in entities, right? Most of that will go to treasury bonds and stocks, which will be the big pick-me-up in American finance. Only half a year after the start of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, nearly $0.6 trillion of European capital flowed into the United States. Thanks to the selflessness of its allies, America's financial markets have weathered 8 interest rate rises. However, as the process of raising interest rates gradually progresses, the U.S. gradually lost its control. The chairman of the Federal Reserve can only decide, once and for all, to continue to raise interest rates. As a result, they pushed out the bet, turned over their cards, and just found that it was a bad gamble. Silicon Valley Bank exploded. Why? When the United States raised interest rates, Silicon Valley banks attracted a lot of deposits at very low interest rates. But when the water is released, everyone is not short of money, and the loan cannot be released, which cannot smash the hand to pay the interest. So Silicon Valley Bank bought a lot of bonds. The interest rate is not high, but at least there is a spread to earn. It sounded good, but as soon as the US raised interest rates, everyone started to run out of money. The problem is, Silicon Valley banks have their money tied up. People buy these bonds and they have to hold them to maturity before they can be redeemed for cash. But can't the client just pick it up? What to do? I had to sell it early. When you think about it, the interest rate in the US is so high and the interest rate on the bonds you bought before is so low, then who wants to pay? Why don't I put it in the bank when I buy yours? So if you want to get cash, you have to sell at a discount. That would be a big loss. Where's the money from the bank? Doesn't the money belong to the depositor? You're about to lose all the depositors' money, so I'm going to get my money out. Everybody withdrew money, and that's it. Silicon Valley Bank exploded. The problem is, what Silicon Valley Bank went through, so did many of America's banks. By America's own estimate, at least 200 other banks are also at risk. Isn't this an international joke? Europe was a mess, the United States was safe, and people came to me for safety, but now it looks like American banks are not safe. In turn, people are running to Europe for safety. In just 1 week, U.S. banks collectively saw outflows of nearly $100 billion, much of it outside the United States. While interest rate increases to this extent, the stool at the foot of the United States has folded 7 or 8. Now you European funds run, is equivalent to my stool to draw, let me fall to death. What's more, without enough money to prop up financial markets, how can the U.S. survive? How can we continue to raise interest rates? This is the problem facing the United States. What to do? No matter what you do, dig a pit and bury your brother again. Didn't you think I was going to mess up America, so you went to Europe? Fine, I'll make Europe even messier. So, a few days after Silicon Valley Bank exploded, Credit Suisse blew itself up. Don't you think it's weird? Switzerland, I'm a hiding place for the world's rich, and banking is the lifeblood of Switzerland. Credit Suisse bank explosion, if all the funds run away, this is not to the death of Switzerland. So the Swiss have simply dropped the ball and demanded that UBS and Credit Suisse merge. On the other side, the U.S. Department of Justice also lost face and announced that it would investigate Credit Suisse and UBS. The reason is allegedly helping Russian oligarchs evade sanctions. You know, Switzerland has become a permanently neutral country. However, after the Russian-Ukraine conflict broke out, Switzerland directly helped the United States, and Credit Suisse Bank even froze the assets of Russian tycoons and leaked the account information of tens of thousands of Russian tycoons. Such a loyal little brother, you now say that it helps Russian oligarchs evade sanctions. Switzerland wants Credit Suisse to live, but the United States wants Credit Suisse to die. So Credit Suisse itself has a problem, some say. Okay, so Deutsche Bank is doing fine, and then suddenly its share price is plummeting. Of all the banks in Europe, the situation is much worse than Deutsche Bank, and whoever is next in line for violence will not be Deutsche Bank, right? But it just blew up. Do you think this is weird? So you don't look at Deutsche Bank thunder, that in addition to the German Chancellor, this time the President of France, the President of the European Union have come out to Deutsche Bank platform. European parents are surprisingly united. Why? If you don't stop, when Deutsche Bank goes down, America will bury you all over Europe. The US wants to harvest Europe again to save its own life. And Europe had to fight in its own defense. We're going to see a lot more heated exchanges. Finally, why are European parents flocking to China? One is to use China as a shield. I am going to visit China to stimulate the United States. If you keep playing like that, I'll have more contact with China. On the other hand, the United States has been killing its younger brother. On the other hand, Saudi Arabia and Iran shook hands and made peace with China. After China proposed a peace plan for the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, both sides showed signs of easing up on peace talks. Europe, for its part, is not without a fresh look at Big Brother's character and influence. In short, America is behind Europe's banking crisis. It will also be an opportunity for China.